I came home and I knew something was wrong. Like my mom was just not acting okay. And it was around Christmas, and I, of course, you know, I was young. I remember that day so vividly because she set me down and she was like, Logan, you remember how I've been kind of sick and we've been going to the doctor a lot? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I have cancer. And it was like, what's that, Mom? Like, she had to explain it all over to me. Over and over again in my head, I just remember thinking, what is cancer? Like, what's it gonna do? How am I gonna get past? Like, I was little, so I didn't understand really what was coming. I didn't understand how big it was. And so as I went, it got better, but I wasn't really for sure. I just know that when she set me down, her face was just pale. And I'd never seen my mom talk to me about something so serious. After learning what it was going to do and like how bad it was terrifying. I think it made us best friends. We went through everything, just me and her pretty much. We had a lot of family and friends, which was amazing. Without them, we wouldn't have done it, but it was just me and my mom. So we were best friends anyways, and going through that made us so much closer. I got to go to a couple chemo treatments with her, which nobody was supposed to be back there. The nurse became friends with my mom. She snuck me back there, and I sat for hours while she got chemo sometimes, and I would color with her, and she would just pull me out of school just to do that with her because I didn't know at the time how much time we were gonna have. She was so far into her diagnosis. I mean, she was at stage 3B, so that's pretty far into what was going on. And at the time, it wasn't something I was really thinking about, losing my mom, but spending a lot of more time with her was really nice. Now we're best friends. I mean, we do everything together still. Every year we go to the American Cancer Society Relay for Life, and we just spend the whole day together, and we try and fundraise and do things like that, and it's just so nice because still to this day, I don't think we would have had that bond had I not almost lost her, because there's a difference in when you love somebody and they're there all the time, and then when you think you might lose them. So she became my best friend after all that. It was really hard because I was doing tumbling, and it was my first power tumbling meet, and my mom missed it. She was in bed one time, and it was like for 2 weeks because she couldn't move. Her chemo was called the Red Devil, and it was the one that was starting to make her really, really sick. So she didn't get to come to a couple of those things, but through my mom's entire year of super hard chemo and radiation and cancer, she came to pretty much everything. It was hard for kids because they didn't understand, and I got kind of bullied about it for a little bit because why was my mom bald, like when I went to places or when I would come into school and my mom would be with me, oh, is that your dad? You know, boys would ask, and it's like, you know, you don't have to be mean because my mom's bald. So it was hard to be like normal in that sense because a lot of people didn't understand what was going on. I had a lot of really good friends, and their moms took care of me. If it wasn't for a lot of my friends and their parents, I don't know what I would have done, because without them, I literally would not be here. So it was cold outside, and I was jumping on the trampoline, and my mom called me in, and she's like, Logan, come inside. And I ran in, and she had scissors and a pair of clippers in her hands, and she's like, we're shaving my hair. And I was like, what? And she's like, she ran her fingers through her hair, and a bunch, like a big wad of it came out, and she said, I can't do it anymore. And I was like, okay. And at the time, I was like, this is so cool, I'm cutting my mom's hair. So I'm cutting it all off, and I fell in love with the way the scissors felt in my hands. And I cut it off, and at the time, I was just cutting away, and then we just took, you know, clippers to it, and she was bald after that. My mom had nothing left, you know, the little bit of spikes that were gonna fall away on her pillow later that night because the chemo was just taking everything from her. So I remember, even to this day, like, that is what got me into this. If it wasn't for my mom, I don't know if I would have found my passion, and I love doing hair. Like, it is everything about me is because of it, and I started it because she had to lose all of hers. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about it. I know that when I was little, it was just like I was having fun. It didn't hit me emotionally until about a week later. I was looking at her, and she just wasn't my mom anymore. You don't realize how much hair does for you. And I remember just sitting back and looking at her thinking, oh my, what if I was bald? Would I still feel beautiful? Like, would I still feel, I felt so, my heart was broken because when I looked at her, she just didn't look like my mom anymore. it was cool to get to do all of it, but the aftermath and the sitting back part of it, looking like that's not my mom. That's not what she looks like. And a week later, we had gone to a fair, and my mom she was talking to me, and when she turned around, he was like, "Oh, 1050, sir." And she just turned around, and she just kind of looked, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And that's when I was like, hair defines a person. I mean, it really does. It can. If you let it define you, it can. And to me, it's just hair. You know, for her, she had long, beautiful locks. I mean, she had never cut it short. It was who she was. She had that big, long, curly hair, and she loved it. And so when she lost it, she lost who she was. And she was really, really lost for a little bit, but she took it like a champ, and she had beautiful head, and she just showed me positivity, and it made me feel like anybody can be beautiful no matter what, because even though she was sick, she still tried to draw her eyebrows on, and she still tried to, you know, put a little hat on to make herself look better, and she would get up every day and go to the store. No matter how she felt, she would do it. So I don't know, the emotion was sad for a little bit, but then it was empowering. It kind of showed me that you can do what you want to do no matter how you look. She has been in remission for 11 years now, so that's such a good feeling to even say. When she came home, and after her mastectomy, she came home and she had to start radiation. It wasn't until after tons and tons of radiation that she finally got to say that she was cancer-free. And when I heard those words, it was so nice, because I didn't know what was going to happen. To think about, like, 6 months before that, she had set me down and she'd asked me, "Logan, if something happens, who do you want to live with?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, who am I going to live with, Mom? I'm going to live, what do you mean?" She's like, "Logan, it's getting really bad, and the diagnosis that I have is a really hard one. It was called HER2, it's a herceptin, and it was a really bad form of cancer." And I was like, "Okay." She's like, "So if something happens to me, where do you want to live?" And I remember when she came home and she was in remission, those words were playing through my head. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to live? And it's like, I get to keep my mom. Like, she beat this. She worked. She fought so hard and so long, and she beat it. And it was such a good feeling, because I got to keep her. She was my person. Like, I don't have anybody else. Like, I just have her. So it was nice when she came home. We were jumping up and down, and we went, it was so much fun. I remember hugging her for what felt like ever. And sometimes, like once a year, when that American Cancer Society comes around, that Relay for Life, and I get to just hug her again because we're another year down, like, it's the best feeling in the whole world. It is so important to get your mammograms. I cannot stress that enough. Monthly breast exams. Check yourself every month. When you're in the shower, give yourself a breast exam. Men and women. You would be amazed at how many men get breast cancer. It is such a big deal. If my mom would not have seen that lump and seen that when she went, she didn't even know she had a lump. She got a mammogram, and that's how she found out. That mammogram saved her life. Had she not had that, I don't know what we would have done. And if it wasn't for Creek Nation, we would have never been able to do that. So we were extremely, extremely grateful that they got her there to see what was going on. She later got on Project Women. If you have never heard of Project Women, everyone needs to visit it, men and women both, because they give free mammograms at hospitals around Oklahoma, and if you don't have insurance, if you can't afford it, that gives you a reason.